what kind of strategies am I looking at? And, how do I develop these critical thinking skills, which are so important? So, some teaching strategies. So, you're trying to make numbers come to life with your learners, very important. Using these kinds of strategies makes this instruction accelerated and individualized. Um, so you got students at different levels and working in groups or individually in the classroom. You base your instruction in the learner's real world, so their experiences, right? How does it involve those aspects of life that are real to the student, that not only education but the family, the neighborhood, employment, community. Teaching your child and other educational skills. Um, some other strategies: building vocabulary. Vocabulary obviously is probably key in any new learning. So that's definitely important in math because there is a math vocabulary, and there's numeracy. There's math dictionaries. Um, Design multisensory lessons, activities that address various student learning styles. The visual, auditory, tactile, and so on. Integrate educational technology, which I will show you a lot of different examples here. Manipulatives are always important, and obviously you can use those as physical or virtual. And hopefully I have some examples here where you can find some of this stuff at a virtual, and later, once we get back to the classrooms a little more, we can look at it with hands-on. Problem solving instruction, be explicit in your instructions, step by step, and include those formulas that might need to be used and so on to help solve problems. Reinforcing math skills through games, very important. It's maybe not as traditional as some would want, but it is something that really enforces and introduces skills for our students, and they're more engaged and retain it longer. Student generated word problems, always a good idea to have your students think about a word problem, relate it to their own everyday life, and see how a word problem is arranged. How it's answered is something obviously that's related to how it's arranged. So understanding how it's arranged will help them to be able to figure out a word problem and organize the equation that comes out of a word problem. Using graphic organizers, always important. The flow charts, the webs, and it's something as simple as a table using rows and columns. Very important to a lot of things in real life, including a lot of work-based skills. So I tend to use a lot of rows and columns to put up examples or equations. Um, just some other math critical thinking skills. As you can see here, you would probably think that these are related to other subjects. For example, in the box on the left, those are what we would consider a lot of reading skills, but math is not an equation in midair, right? It is a situation that you have to solve most of the times in writing or spoken. So you have to use a lot of those same skills. Looking at the chart on the right, the box on the right, a lot of these skills we relate to maybe science or social studies or geography. Once again, very important in math skills and understanding how these things relate and how math is used in both. A lot of what I use for my main math skills, and let's call it my subject areas in math, I use a lot of measurement and calculation, a lot of money math, which we can call financial literacy, scheduling, budgeting, and accounting, very work based, everyday life based, and data analysis, which there's skills used to solve problems by analyzing and using numerical data. So I try to put my activities, my lessons based on these 4 general areas in math education. So now I'm going to start with some of my examples. So my first examples deal with workplace, contextualize, and more. So just a little bit of background on this part. The inability to recode real world situations into math persists through all levels of education. And I'm even talking about those that have higher level degrees. Changing work practices generate new demands for mathematical skills, particularly in efficiency, innovation, quality, and continuous improvement. And that is true in everything, you know, from McDonald's to IBM. Judgment or problem solving procedures. So mathematics is applied in both routine and complex tasks requiring sophisticated use of fundamental mathematical skills. So for example, mathematical demands may be present implicitly in the workplace task, often through tasks that are not obviously mathematical. And that's important. And that's why this whole study of word problems and deciphering what's important in a word problem. For example, what you would get in a math situation, you would get extraneous information to sort through. What do I need? What is too much? Rearranging of information required to get to the answer. So how can I rearrange this? How can I chain these steps or form a sequence? That's why sequence is such an important skill in math as well. So in sum, workplace math is critical thinking as applied to math. So my workplace math. And what I've done is I created this chart just to look for activities, both that could be used in the classroom or virtually. So I put together a list of these foundation skills and then the workplace examples. So for just a quick example here, the whole numbers, as you can see on the left, that's my foundation skill. Over in the middle, just explains it a little bit. And then over on the right, it gives me those workplace examples. Obviously, those are very general and you can keep adding to this, but it just gives you an idea. And I'm not going to go through every single part of this chart, but this chart is here. I'm always adding to it, as you can see here. So for example, my other example, geometry. So apply geometric concepts such as parallelism, perpendicularity, and tangents. So even up to trig we're looking at here. And then how do I use this in the workplace, right? Find the center of a room to install fixtures, cut hair using angles, which is something I've talked to many students about, especially those, oh, I'm going to be a beautician. I need to know no math. I'm ready to go. And I have some other examples to that. And this is the whole chart. And once again, I could share this whole presentation with you, including the chart that's in the presentation, and some of them have links. Going on to some math websites and app ideas related to this workplace background. One of my favorites is Math Apprentice, and this is a link on here, so you could go to it. And Math Apprentice, as you see there, it talks about that path that you need for math skills in any one of these apprenticeships. And very interesting site, and with a lot of free activities. Most of these sites that I'm presenting to you are free. I will let you know when you might have to pay for some of it. This one is completely free. This one, as I mentioned about the hair cutting, this it addresses hair cutting and a lot more careers. Skill One TV. Skill One TV, once again, has a gallery of activities. It has videos. It explains to students how math will be used here and what are those skills that are needed for that career, that job that you're looking at. And it talks about everything, as you can see on the left, from automotive to hospitality, tourism, services, and so on. So a lot that we can discuss with our students and get them on that path to understanding what their needs are for that career. This one quite a few vocational interests. So how do you use math at work? And as you can see here from the videos and the titles, how it relates directly to some practical math use at work. And some of those examples, lots of free activities, lots of free resources. Another good site to use at Hakey.com. It's a pretty big site. This is the one page that they have that relates to the workplace and careers. I will go into some of these sites, but not these, just for the sake of time and my timing here. Micron Math in the Workplace, another great math site. And it does a lot of background for you. It does a lot of explaining for your students. For example, how am I ever going to use this stuff, right? All this math you teach, and the one question you get from your students is, how am I ever going to use that stuff? Well, Micron does a very good job of explaining how these skills would be used in the math place and activities that reinforce these skills. Once again, free. XP Math, not completely free. You do get some free stuff. This section that I'm looking at is Math in Careers database. And a couple of things about XP Math. It's pretty vast. There's a lot of information in here. You could probably build whole classes and curriculums just from this site. However, like I mentioned, there is a cost. A lot of the stuff you see right here on this page is free. And XP Math has also worked with a .gov to build links to careers, and I'll show you what I created from that. So this is where I created from that. So these are like virtual cards. So for example, I have my students that are interested in advertising, marketing, and promotions, public relations, sales managers. What XP Math did was they worked with the Gov site on careers, and basically the Bureau of Labor Statistics is and the Department of Labor, and put together this information. So most of the description and the source and the salary comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the U.S. Department of Labor. But together with XP Math, they also send you to a link that lets you know what are the math skills that are going to be needed for this particular career path. What's nice is that all of these are links, and once again, this is shared on not only on this PowerPoint, but I have separate documents too through my email. And not only are these links, but they're actually links to pages where you can find activities related to these skills. Okay, so these obviously could be printed as well, but they're so much better virtually because of the links and how they could work. And here's one: construction managers, human resources. It takes a little while to put these together, so I think I have about 8 of them. Food service managers, medical and health service managers. And I do have one for hair cutting and a lot of other things. Let me go past this. Another quick math site is We Use Math, which it's actually dedicated to all levels. So it's from the youngest to adults, and it's got a lot of resources for teachers. So this is what I've been using this site the most for. And of course, going back to the workplace subject that I'm looking at for these first slides here, it deals with careers in using math and other career-based contextualized math skills. BBC SkillsWise Math for Adults, another great site. There is free parts, probably about 40% of it is free. If you want the full-blown version, there is a cost. but there's so much activities on here. For example, the ones you can see right on this page, those are all free. And it's just a great site to engage students virtually or in the classroom. And I think this is my last one. This one actually is from an instructor over at the University of Georgia, and he basically took these skills and related it to the actual on the job. It's almost like an actual series that take place on the job, and he goes through the receptionist, the billing agent, the clerical staff, and points out these skills that are needed for different situations while on this job. Of course, math related. It's very nice. Unfortunately, this is the only page there is on this, but it is still active, and you can get a lot out of it and maybe figure out how to create your own. And then just for the last, I just wanted to show you, because obviously, we've noticed that our students use phones and tablets, and some of these websites are not exactly made for a phone or a tablet. So even though you could access them, they don't work as well as you would want them to. So I've also suggested some apps that obviously are made for mobile devices. And these are all linked to these different organizations, these different platforms. Obviously, Khan Academy, many of us are familiar with Khan Academy. King of Maths is a Google Classroom, Android-based. It's a very complete curriculum-based platform, and it is completely free, and it goes very well into your Google Classroom, where students can access that app through a Chromebook or a tablet or a phone and be able to complete activities that you have assigned them. And then just one more that I'll talk about, but hopefully you'll have time to look through all of these. Many of them are free or mostly free, or have components of that's free, or in some cases you might just pay for the download of the app and everything is free inside. Photomath, which is one of those that you have to pay for the download of the app, is one of these brand new, they're basically like a virtual reality app, or augmented reality. These apps go that step further. For Photomath, for example, you can take a picture of just about anything. Like, for example, the picture illustration that's on the phone there. If you take that picture, Photomath will solve it for you. But not only solve it for you where, hey, your students are going to use this to cheat. And some of them have called this as one of the 10 or so new apps that came out that are cheating apps, but they give you a step-by-step on how this equation was solved, which is something obviously you could see how that could be used for learning. All right, so let me go over to a contextualized ideas and some ideas that I've created on my own. So using these math skills for real world situations, this in the workplace, healthcare, and what I call homemade activities, because these are ones that I created on my own with help from what I've seen on other sites and so on. Using the formulas and so on. For example, a dosing formula to figure out the dosage of a medication. Many organizations have healthcare bridge programs. So maybe the way math is used in a healthcare setting is a very good part of your healthcare bridge program, and using some of these activities or websites that can help, or apps that can help, is definitely something that will let students know what to prepare for in the process of this career. And as you can see, and I have a number of these. This is just an example of actually one group of activities. Okay, so going on to some real world situations with science. So a lot of science involved in math, obviously, and I'm gonna start off this one with just some homemade activities. And as you can look here, this is the evolutionary clock, and I have my students work through this and basically answer questions on it. And the link, the activity that I have does have all the questions and the answers if you're interested. Other things that I use are charts and so on. So this is something that I might have on my Zoom class, and I might have this up on the screen. They would have also been sent a shared Google Doc. I might put them off into breakout rooms in different groups, hopefully putting those that I think are a little more competent in solving this together with those that might need a little more help, put them in that breakout group, check in on the breakout groups as they work through the questions that they have on their Google Doc that they're sharing, and with my screen that has my two tables here and the information that they need to look at to work through their problems. Okay, moving on. This one, some riddles, numeracy, and word problems, and I'm putting all this together in one, looking at just some of the ideas that you can use. Once again, we're looking at student engagement. At the same time, we might be introducing a more involved section of our fractions, let's say, or our geometric equations. We might be looking at a way to engage students to get them started, or even a way to engage students working virtually and using and working on math. So I'm going to, just for the sake of keeping you guys engaged and entertained, um, I will put the link on the chat again for my email. But in the meantime, so if you have like a paper near you, or a pen and paper near you, because I do encourage my students that to use a paper and pen if they want to. They can open up a new tab, and in that new tab, use a document to enter information. Or like I said, they might have a document that they're sharing. But for us right now, so we don't have to go back and forth from tab to tab, and I don't have a document to share, take out a sheet of paper and a pencil if you can, or use your great memory. So here we go. All right. So I want you to think of a number between 1 and 10. Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to put my email back in the chat. Okay, and someone just downloaded Photomath, and it was free. So that's great, because I actually, these things just came out. A lot of these apps just came out last year. And the last time I looked at it, there was a cost, but maybe a lot of things have changed because of COVID and things like that. So, all right. So think of a number. Great. Thank you for that information on the Photomath. It's a great app. Think of a number between 1 and 10. Okay. So write that number down. Okay. Now multiply that number by 2. Okay, now I put my email on both chats, because the Zoom has a chat and the app has a chat. So they're both in there now. Okay. So now you should have a new number. So you started with a number from 1 to 10, you multiplied that number by 2. Okay. Let's keep going there. Now I want you to add 8 to that number. Okay, so now you have a new number that you added 8 to. Now take that number and divide it by 2. So you should have a new number now that you first added 8 and then you divide it by 2. Okay, now go back to your original number that you chose from 1 to 10 and subtract your original number from that. So you should have some number between 1 and 26. And of course, that's the same amount of letters in the alphabet. And I'll go back real quick. So we started off with a number from 1 to 10. We multiplied it by 2. We added 8. We divided by 2. We went back to that original number that you had somewhere and you subtracted it. And now you should have a new number between 1 and 26. And this is the way I would work with my students, and maybe even review once or twice, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. So now what I like you to do is take that number that you have and correspond it with a letter in the alphabet. So for example, if the number you have is 6, the corresponding letter in the alphabet is F. If the number you have is 14, then the corresponding letter in the alphabet is N. So go ahead and find that letter that corresponds with that number. Okay, so now you have a letter. What I'd like you to do, and I did put the countries up here. I kind of like for you to pick from one of these countries. Most of our students, because of the level of education or just because of the knowledge of geography, will choose one of these countries, maybe not like Western Samoa or even Zimbabwe, but most of the others they might choose, or Orman, but most of the others they might choose. But these are just examples, okay? So once again, just choose a country. With the letter, the number that corresponds to that letter, use that letter to choose a country. So hopefully you have a country written down. Okay, now take the letter that comes next in the alphabet. So for example, if your country started with the letter B, obviously the next letter in the alphabet would be C. So go ahead now and choose an animal's name that starts with that letter, okay? So I did put the animals up here. Don't want any unicorns or, but you can see that unicorns is up there. So you could use that as well. So once again, this is written for my students. So go ahead and choose an animal. So now you're going to have a country and an animal. The country starting with that first letter that corresponded to the number, and the animal starting with the second letter after that first letter in the alphabet. Okay, now think about what color that animal is. Now, try to give it a realistic color. I guess if you pick the unicorn, then it may not be very realistic, but give it a color. So think about that country, think about that animal, and think about its color. Okay, so you should have a country, an animal, a color, and I'm a minute over here, so on my timing for this particular activity. So I'm just going to go ahead and hopefully, and believe it or not, this is a start to my probability activities. Probability, magic, gambling, it's all related here. And I'm going to hopefully show that to my students with a percentage of people that will have what I predict you might have. So if you have gray elephants in Denmark, go ahead and put it in the chat. Yes or no.
That's cool. I want to use that as an icebreaker.
So you could find many of these online. You might have to rearrange them around a little bit. I did that with this one, but it really, you know, there was free to use. The copyright what was on it. So basically, I just turned it around a little bit. But once again, it's getting your students engaged. So I had my students now work on a task, right? They worked on and I sometimes do use that paper and pen because I'm not eliminating that from the process. But they are engaged and they're like, oh wow, so how does that happen? You know, how does probability work that way? So to lead into that. Okay. Just some other riddles to get to this. You know, I look through riddles all the time. There's math sites that have riddles. There's probably hundreds of thousands of math riddle sites. Most of them are pretty bad. So you really have to take a riddle and adjust it to where it's something that you want. So for example, this particular riddle, there are 6 women. Each woman has 6 baskets. Each basket has 6 cats. Each cat has 6 kittens. How many paws are there in all? And as you can see, I had to make sure I put the paws in there and drew them. And I know we've probably seen 3-legged cats, but I'm talking about a 4-pawed cat and kittens. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using numeracy and I'm looking at the words in this word problem, because that's what this riddle is, in this word problem, and I'm taking those words and making them into a numerical equation. So if I look at the first one, there are 6 women, that converts to 6. Each woman has 6 baskets, that converts to 6 times 6 equals 36. Each basket has 6 cats, that converts to 36 times 6 equaling, I think, 216. Each cat has 6 kittens, so I'm taking the 216 and multiplying it by 6, which I think is 1296, I believe. I could be off, and doing off the top of my head here. So then I'm asking how many paws in all, and I said that there was 4. What I also have used this for is understanding a word problem and understanding what it's asking you. So it's asking you how many paws in all. What happens many times is that last equation, that 1296, what I get a lot of people do is they just take the 4 and multiply it by that 1296. But really, that 1296 represents only the kittens. So when they multiply that 1296 by 4, they actually get, I think it's 5,190 something, 92 or something like that. So that is incorrect. You really have to go back to your cats, your 216, add it to the 1296. Now you have your cats and your kittens, and you multiply by 4. So going back and reviewing, am I answering the question, paws in all, right? And then getting my 6,048 as my answer. What I do with these riddles, and the example is here too, so I take the riddles and take it to that next level. As you can see, using information from the internet, I gauge what a cat might eat in a typical day, what a kitten might eat, put together what products you could buy, gave them that 16 ounces equals a pound, like it says down on the bottom, and ask them to work through some more challenging math skills in this very simple activity that probably took me about less than 15 minutes to put together, and I could just keep adding to it. And then just some other riddles that I have here. I'm not going to go over these too much. I want to get past this part. But once again, you can look at these. Some of them I developed on my own. Some I borrowed from websites that let me borrow them, and then was able to kind of move them around a little bit. Some other things that I use are number stompers, which once again are riddles, but they're a little different because they kind of start off with a clue. So it is an even 2-digit number. And then we look at, once again, numeracy. So the difference between its digits is 1. So if we're looking at the word difference, what does that mean? Obviously subtraction, right? Take away. So looking at that, and then when the 2 digits are multiplied, the product is 12. Once again, looking at what does product mean? And what are all my products of 12, right? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now I'm looking at which one, I go back to number 2, which one has a difference in its digits by 1? Obviously, 3 and 4, right? And then I go back to number 1, my first clue, and it says it is an even 2-digit number. So obviously it can't be 43, but it could be 34. So a lot of thinking that goes on there, very simple riddles. Most of these I created, but I did find ideas for them online. Looking at word sorts and looking at math numeracy words and how do they relate, having my students pick a number of them and starting off with, what do I know already, right? Using that KWL chart, right? What do I know already? Let's put that in a group and explain to me in your own words, why are all these words in the same group? And then now let's continue to see what I still need to know, what I might need to correct or look up a little bit more to learn these words. Another thing that I use quite a bit is, as I did with the activity we did, relating 1 through 26 to A to Z. What I've done is created my own bank of words that if you work the words around, they actually go into a number. So for example, in this phrase, in the first one, the US states minus 30, right? So I may go back and figure out what that is and look it up, and it's 20, right? And then I go back to my chart and I find that that is a T. What I'm trying to create here is working through these maths, and it really looks at subjects, you know, across, right? So you're looking at history, you're looking at sports. I have a number of these that relate to different topics, even popular music. The choose an item on each side. What I've done is, for many of these, besides making them into Google Forms, I also make them, you can make your Microsoft documents interactive by using their developer tab. And that's a whole webinar on its own. But what I've done is use the developer tab and made when I hover over choose an item, there'll be a drop down arrow that comes up. And on the right side, it'll be 1 through 26, 1 through 26. And on the left side, it'll be A through Z. So I can be interactive with this very static document that I just created in Microsoft Word, and then made it interactive so my students can work on it online. And I could even work on it and share it with them during our Zoom call or Google Hangouts, whatever that might be. And then there's some other activities here related to that. And I probably have dozens of these in my sharing docs. Once manipulating these, another great activity to do on your screen, have students either chat where they think it goes, or have them work once again in breakout groups. Basically, we have the answers here. We're just trying to organize the flow of the equation and how it's solved. And all of these move around, and you're able to, let me see if I can show you that. So you see that I can move this around anywhere. Obviously, I would make more room. This is only for an example purpose. And then you can move your arrows too, to bring your arrows to go from place to place. Okay, let me keep going here. Having your students write their own word problems using what they call realia, right? Real life items to relate that word problem to something they use every day, something they use at work, or maybe even something that they can tell a story about because they heard someone else use it or a friend talk about it. It makes the word problems very real. It helps them to understand the organization of a word problem and help them to answer those word problems better. So not only do they create their own background, right? They create their stage. Like, you know, Michael and John went to the pizza parlor. They both ordered an extra large pizza. Blah blah blah. This is, and you can use the menu that they're using. You can use particular gauges, and you can find these things online, right? So if you're not able to use them in person, you might still be able to identify them and include them as part of the story as a visual. I've also used coupon sites where you could add the coupon and you see the coupon there. You can look at the stipulations of the coupon and solve that. The recipes, you can take recipes and convert them. This is called Recipe Land, and there's just hundreds of thousands of recipes on here, and it's free to access most of them. Menu page, this is actually a site that has thousands of menus all over the world, and you could actually pretend that you're going to that restaurant and use that menu and obviously create that word problem and create the activities and the equations, the word problems that go along with that, and using that menu. Briefly, I want to talk about another website that I use quite a bit, which is actually the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. They have a few different sites in there that has resources and activities. One of my favorites is the Illuminations one, and I just want to show you real quick the others. So they also have Calculation Nation, Figure This, and Core Math Skills, which Core Math Skills definitely a lot more involved than any of these others, and it's totally downloadable. But what I wanted to talk about was the Illuminations. So looking at Illuminations, and I want to just go into one more activity here, which hopefully we could do in a few minutes, and then I can finish off my presentation. Very simple. I start off with something that's kind of fun. So I'm going to go with, okay, so a man has to take a wolf, a goat, and some cabbage across a river. His rowboat has enough room for the man plus the wolf, or the goat, or the cabbage. If he takes the cabbage with him, the wolf will eat the goat. If he takes the wolf, the goat will eat the cabbage. Only when the man is present are the goat and the cabbage safe from their enemies. All the same, the man carries wolf, goat, and cabbage across the river. How does he do that? Okay, we're talking about critical thinking. It doesn't, everything does not have a number related to it, though I could relate numbers to this. For example, we talked about earlier about how important sequencing was. Many websites now, math websites, have the game Simon as one of their games. Why do they have the game Simon? Because you are practicing the sequences of those lights going on and off, and you're practicing. Your brain is getting into that sequence mode, and it's a very good practice to start off something a little more engaging in those math skills. So we think about it. Maybe you thought about it already, how that might work. And, you know, obviously I let my students think about it, and they could debate in groups and so on. And of course, what happens is that the wolf does not eat the cabbage, right? So crossing can start with the goat. So the man leaves the goat and returns. So the man takes the goat over and returns, puts the cabbage in the boat and takes it across. So on the other bank, he leaves the cabbage and but takes the goat. Okay. He leaves the goat on the first bank and takes the wolf across. He leaves the cabbage with the wolf and rows back alone, and then he takes the goat across. The whole idea was arranging it so the goat is not alone with the cabbage or alone with the wolf. because obviously the consequences that we mentioned. Okay, so a lot of thinking, and someone actually even put the answer on there, or their idea of it. And then we can go to some others. This is just another example, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into it. But once again, this is another favorite one of my students. Basically, you're looking at the bowl contains 75 candies, identical except for color. 20 are red, 25 are green, 30 are brown. Without looking, what is the least number of candies you must pick in order to be absolutely certain that the 3 of them are brown. Okay, so basically, if you get your greens out of the way, right, and you get your reds out of the way, that is 45, and then you know that the next 3 are going to be brown, right, with your answer being 48. So once again, takes a little bit of critical thinking and a little bit of solving, and our students just love these kinds of questions. Okay, I'm gonna go past the riddle and numeracy and ideas over to geometry ideas. And I have a lot of different websites, and hopefully, once again, I can share this with you, or you can even get this off the recording. This website, you can print out a lot of these sources, or you could just use them virtually as well. And this one has protractors and all free. This ruler game, all virtual, all can be done online. Pythagorean Explorer, shoulder.org. If you have not looked into shoulder.org, CHODOR.org, great site. All of these activities you can do virtually online. You can do them with your students. You can do them for your students as they respond, and all virtually, and all free. Okay, look into that site if you're interested in these virtual manipulations. Harcourt Schools, another one, a lot of virtual related activities, and all can be done online, all free. Mass On, a lot of virtual activities as well. Maybe not as much as the first 2 I mentioned, but once again, another free site. Math2.org, a lot of reference material, a lot of virtual activities, but a lot of things that you could use for reference material within your activities that you create, or just to look at before you start some questions. The Pythagorean theorem game, another virtual game, very nice. It's math-play.com. There's quite a few different games on there. This just happens to be one of my favorite ones. The Pythagorean theorem timelines, once again, building a lot of history into the idea of math, and then obviously that timeline with how the Pythagorean theorem was developed. So just some ideas there. Some more kind of geometry related, kind of workplace related, kind of everyday life related skills. I call them how much material do I need activities, and I have quite a few of them. For example, how much material do I need to paint? Just looking at floor plans and evaluating that with, of course, the formulas. Looking at, and I developed this from the ruler game that I showed you earlier, but obviously this one is where you can use the text boxes. You could actually click on these and move them around. So once again, just on Microsoft Word, I created that. How much paint? So how much paint is needed? Obviously, there's your word problem. There's your formula. All of these are areas where you could input information. You have all your pictures you need, all the measurements you need. All of these created just to relate that everyday life stuff that you might need to these math skills that are very important. How many tiles? How much flooring does the Wilson family need? How much wallpaper? And obviously I make sure I put the windows and doors. We don't want to count that as wallpapering, and some ideas like that. Another interactive I use is taking a shape. You can draw these shapes, you can look them up online. Now let's look at the perimeter. Let's look at the area of volume, surface area, weight. We have a chart to record it all in. All of this can be done online or in person. And then for my last part here, which I think I have enough time, just looking at some real world situations, this time tables, formulas, conversions, and so on. You know, this chart I created, once again, using my table, rows and columns, looking at today's prices, the percentages increases. And obviously, you can put anything in here. You can create a lot of activity, a lot of internet to do kind of stuff where you're looking this stuff up on the internet, you're coming back with those new prices, and you're going ahead and doing the calculations. Same thing here, you know, price per gallon. We always think of a price a gallon of gas being something that's crucial. What about gallons of other things? You know, the recipe, as I mentioned, with that recipe page where you can find thousands of recipes, another good thing to look at. And this one, just looking at a coupon and evaluating that. You know, there's a lot of words here that our students try to gauge. In this coupon, we had a long conversation on the word hosiery and what that meant and so on. So that's great, because that just leads to vocabulary, and that's helpful. Just looking at other formulas, looking at Fahrenheit and Celsius. These are activities that I put together, but they're very easy for you to borrow them, do whatever you like with them, and use them however you like, manipulate them however you like, change it to a better level. This one using the X's and Y's, just creating an equation or an expression. This one looking at electrician's math. And as you can see here, a lot of it some of it is filled out for you to get you started. And then the solution is next to it. Just plain order forms and giving students a magazine and having them order stuff, using those columns and rows, you know, figuring out the total, your change, and so on. Very simple. I also have a series of calculating with maps and globes. You can do this online. The main thing is that you have your formula right here. You can use what, you know, those things that are called maps, but they're actually like physical on paper. I don't know if anybody has any of those anymore, but they're great to bring not only into the classroom, but you can look these up online and you can find like the physical version that someone has taken pictures of, or that they're virtual, but they still look like you're reading out of a book, and use the calculations off of that. And I have a number of those. And obviously this one I manipulated so I could use on screen, and I could use that manipulative to help my students answer these questions while we're working on Zoom. Timelines, great to use timelines. I created this timeline with a page that covers civilization, you know, fertility, mortality, and just some other population growth, population projections. A little more advanced, and this was for a very advanced class that I had. And then just some websites that deal with this, obviously metric conversions and so on. This next part is all financial literacy. And I just wanted to point this one out because my students love this one. If you go to shoulder.org, once again, shoulder.org, and it actually flips a penny for you. You can tell it how to flip a penny, how many times to flip a penny. So I can go on there and flip a penny 10 times. I'll record how many heads, how many tails, and so on. And then I can even start off with a prediction, right? Predicting, great skill. And then later, use percentages, use ratios, use fractions, all tied into a program flipping a penny 10 times. And just some other activities that I have with you know, financial literacy in mind, and looking at how to gauge those things. A lot of activities with games, and I do encourage you to look at these. Some of them I created, others I have borrowed the idea, either with permission for the copyright, or just using it because you're allowed to, and changing it around for my own. So please take a look at these if you have time. Just a lot of different games on here and boards and so on. And I do have the websites too, where you can find like templates for this, you know, even using Smarties as a game and using the nutritional facts and so on. And hopefully you've all caught on to different game show websites, Cool Math Games, Game Aquarium, Jeopardy Labs has one you can put together. The Pythagorean Theorem game, which I mentioned earlier, Math Playground. You got to look around and find those that are more adult based, but they do have them. MrNewsBomb.com, which is great. This one is Boxing Einstein, and you can pick your own famous person to box Einstein and use greater than fractions and so on. Great game. And then, of course, the traditional ones that many people are using: Kahoot, eQuiz Show, Quizalize, Quizlet quizzes. I put that on here because obviously these have apps. They're mobile based. You can use them on tablets. They're very easy to use. They keep students very engaged. And then just to end this, some various apps that I put on there that I've used and still use, and have a lot of free stuff or completely free. And I'm just going to scan through these, you know, AMath Plus, math.com. And many of these have interactive stuff. Okay, so I just have a couple minutes. So I noticed that there is one question here. No, I guess there isn't. Are there any questions that you want to put in the chat in the next minute or so?
Michael, there was one that came through, or two actually. One asking if you're going to share the slides, and I think you said yes. And then someone asking if you could show the clip from Mind Games.
The clip
Not
from,
sure what that was.
I'm not sure what that one is.
Says, can you show that clip?
I'm not sure what the Mind Games was, but like I said, I am sharing.
Not sure the clip, but you can find on Mind Games on Netflix. They had an episode where they showed that exact, you know, carrying the thing across, and they quiz people on trying to figure it out and stuff. It was kind of amusing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think someone else mentioned that too in my last presentation. Yeah, that's very good. Is that still on Netflix?
Actually, I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while, but I just remember using it in a classroom like last year. So
cool. Yeah. You know, once again, I'll put my my email on here, and not only is this PowerPoint or this slides presentation is going to be on there to share, but there's activities tied to just about everything that's on here, including the links that are here for all of this and all those games that I showed you that I put together, and those, like, they're all there, and I will share all of that. I put the email on the chat again. So thank you all very much for attending, and please feel free to stay in touch. And I create these things for sharing and for letting teachers get ideas to create even more on their own. And that's pretty much it. Any other questions?
How do you keep track of everything that you use?
So basically, I have, believe it or not, I have all of these different sites on a slide, on a spreadsheet. So they're all links down a spreadsheet. And then when I make documents, I put them into folders and try to name the folders very accurately so I know where to go back and look for them. So that's how they're arranged in my Google Docs sharing. So there's a number of folders with different skills And then, of course, the links to websites that I could also use to develop those skills are also linked in there somewhere. You know, I don't want to overwhelm anybody. It's not meant to overwhelm, it's to give you ideas. Because to keep students engaged, we can't work off of one website for hours on end. We can't work off of one textbook for hours on end. The best way to do this is to move every 20 to 30 minutes, move. Try something different. Try a scenery, a picture that's different. That's what keeps them engaged. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other questions coming through.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Just lots
Jody.
of, this
Thank you
was
very much
awesome.
for your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.